Wife's cat ignored me for years, my dog and her cat Pa-sed away, now the cat treats me like his cult leader. In 2020, I took the plunge and moved in with my then girlfriend, now my wife. With our merged lives came a tangled, furry family. I brought my loyal old dog, Gemma. She brought along 2 cats, Indy and Pico. I had this naive hope that, together, our animals would become some chaotic but lovable Pixar cast. Turns out, I was dreaming. Gemma was pure sweetness, scruffy, quiet, getting on in years, and the sort of dog who seemed like she'd witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations but only wanted gentle chest rubs and a soft corner for naps. She adored cats. She always seemed to wish they were her own pets. I'd watch her gently settle down next to them, eyes full of hope and longing. She hardly ever barked, didn't force snuggles, but always hovered nearby with the wish that, just maybe, one day one of those cats would love her back. She had this innocent juice box on the first day of school energy, always hanging on for friendship. Indy, meanwhile, was a calico tabby with the emotional stability of a live grenade. She absolutely loathed the move, loathed Gemma, and frankly, loathed existence except when it came to my wife, and, bizarrely, eventually even me. For a solid year, Indy exiled herself upstairs, refusing to grace the first floor with her royal presence. With time, she thawed a bit and started accepting me, but never, not once, did she see Gemma as anything but her personal arch-nemesis. Even when she conquered her staircase phobia, Indy would leap and tiptoe across furniture and windowsills, a tiny ninja avoiding landmines, just to avoid any space Gemma once breathed on. Poor Gemma, bless her heart, had to quickly surrender her dream of a feline buddy after getting swatted down a couple times for no good reason. Then there was Pico. Pico, my wife's large orange tabby, had all the emotional fortitude of a wet sponge. He was anxious, painfully clingy, and absolutely had no use for me. He lived only for my wife. If she closed her office door, Pico would cry theatrically, like a drama student desperate for applause. He'd glance at me with open suspicion, as if I was the guy his human warned him about. He loathed cuddles unless they came from her. We reached an understanding, I existed, and he acted as if I didn't. That's how our home stayed, a delicate ceasefire. Gemma ever hopeful, seeking peace and a warm spot in the sun, with a cat friend who'd never exist, Indy radiating chaotic hostility or occasionally deigning to cuddle me, and Pico ignoring me with near professional enthusiasm. Somehow, it worked. 2 years ago, Gemma passed away at 16, quietly and gently, her whole wonderful life closing with no fuss. We were gutted. A few months after that, Indy, who by now had accepted me into her orbit, flipped a switch. Suddenly, I became her chosen person. She was glued to me, wailing when I left, draping herself on me in every weird way she could, full gremlin mode, just loaded up with affection. But Indy's health took a turn. Her heart murmur worsened, and about a month ago, we faced the excruciating choice to let her go peacefully. She was 17. Losing her so soon after Gemma was devastating. And then, almost overnight, everything changed. Suddenly Pico, the big sad orange cat who'd ignored my existence for 4 years, turned into my tiny furry stalker. Now he sleeps pressed against me. He flops over for belly rubs like I'm administering life-saving spa treatments. He follows me into every room, insists on camping out in my office all day, and if I venture back to bed he jumps in and cuddles up like I'm the last warm patch on earth. He wants me to feed him, not my wife. He'll even bypass her to nudge my chair, demanding my attention. He purrs, this rough, gritty purr like a lawnmower on its last legs, and stares at me with pure, crazy adoration, the kind usually reserved for cult leaders and can-openers. We haven't changed a thing. Our routine is unchanged, our house the same. My wife, his original person, is still right here, ready for cuddles, but now I'm apparently his soulmate. It's like Pico flipped some hidden switch, and it left both of us completely bewildered. I keep coming up with theories. Maybe Indy used to bully him into leaving me alone, and now he's free to pursue this forbidden love? Or he's grieving along with me, but if so, it doesn't feel like mutual healing so much as rub my belly right now, grief human. Maybe this is all some grand long con. Perhaps I'm being softened up for something. Not murder, he's terrible at being a cat. But something. The shift is just so total, so instantaneous. Suddenly, I have this completely different animal on my hands, clingy, cuddly, hilariously bad at cat etiquette, but undeniably charming. I feel like I've missed a memo somewhere. What happened here? Is this a side effect of animal grief? Did he just now realize I give world-class belly rubs? Or have I been played all along by a clever orange loaf? One way or another, I'm apparently his person now, and I've accepted my new role as top-tier belly rubber for the worst cat in the world, and honestly, it's kind of wonderful, even if I still have no idea why. Update 1. I can tell you this with absolute certainty, I am slowly going mad. Ever since Indy, our beloved cat, passed away, I've noticed things about our other cat, Pico, that I never saw before. At first, I thought Indy had just claimed me as her person, and that she was keeping Pico at bay for her own mysterious feline purposes. But now, I realize it was far more sinister and, in fact, almost a selfless act on her part. She was protecting me from him. Maybe she was protecting him from me, too. Am I exaggerating? Of course I am. Or at least, I wish I were. See, no living creature could possibly emit the unremitting, rhythmic, annoying meow every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Luckily, Pico is not supernaturally cursed. He does sleep for roughly 18 hours a day, and he spends 10 to 30 seconds, several times a day, inhaling whatever fragrant pile of pate-like meat we heap into his fancy flower-shaped ceramic dish. But when awake, he unleashes a torrent of meows. He's capable of keep up that onslaught for several consecutive minutes. 15 is my current personal record of withstanding his unrelenting sonic barrage. And it's not loud, which would almost be easier. It's worse, a piercing, psychic needle jabbed repeatedly into my skull, like someone tracing little shocks into my cerebellum with chalk-dusted fingers on the blackboard of my mind. Over and over and over. I have tried, out of desperation, to understand the meaning of his relentless vocalizations. The reasons are many. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's a demand for attention, sometimes it's a need to ascend to a higher perch. There are two things, however, he's never used it for, but that's beside the point. The worst, or perhaps the best, in the most infuriating way, came after I moved my desk into a cubby in our bedroom. Directly behind me sits our marital bed, which Pico, now king of the castle, has claimed as his throne. There are stairs at the end of the bed. He knows how to use them. Of course, that's not good enough for His Majesty. He won't lower himself to such indignities when the human-powered elevator, me, is right there. Let's be clear, I am the human-powered elevation device. Not my wife, not anyone else. Just me. His latest and most formidable tactic? He begs for a specific kind of attention, bypassing my wife entirely. Only I can fulfill this role. We can only blame ourselves. To be honest, Pico has always been spectacularly bad at being a cat. Chasing mice? Never. Strings? Nope. Laser pointers? Not a chance. Climbing to high places? Only ever attempted to reach the back of the couch where my wife had left her ice cream unattended. He is, at nearly 17, a hedonistic loaf of orange fur who's been spoiled rotten. As I write this, he's pawing insistently at the back of my chair, demanding that I fulfill my sacred obligation, belly rubs. Not just any belly rubs. He wants me to scoop him up, press my head into him, and flop him onto his side, firmly but gently. The tradition started in sheer frustration. After being interrupted for the 7th time in an hour, I pressed him to the bed in exasperation and gave him a belly rub, only for him to start purring, loud as a tiny, happy engine. The exact same purr he used to reserve for my wife in the early hours when she'd give in and let him snuggle up. I'd swear I could hear him think, "See, fat man? She loves me more." Now, I am forced to perform this ritual several times a day. I am not permitted on the bed with him. I must remain in my chair, leaning over to provide him the correct combination of pressure, warmth, and attention, while he exuberantly needs the air or clings to my arm. Is it cute? Of course. Is it also almost exclusively annoying and inconvenient? Absolutely. Day by day, I feel my sanity eroding. Each meow burrows into my brain like tiny, furry caterpillars gnawing at my neurons. And yet, how can I stay angry as he purrs, his old man engine coughing back to life with every stroke of his belly, like a lawn tractor on its last legs, with the choke all the way out, growling for one more summer. I can almost hear some cranky old guy muttering, "You can't just cold start him, gotta warm him up first." Sometimes, in a futile attempt to reassert my grip on reality, I talk back to him, "Meow. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Meow. No, it's not time for dinner yet, buddy, meow. You wouldn't talk to your mother like that. Meow. It's not okay to use that kind of language in this house. Meow. Seriously, where did you learn that word? It wasn't from me." My wife and mother-in-law find these conversations hilarious. They don't see this as my last, desperate attempt to cling to sanity. But it truly is. He will not stop until he gets what he wants. Any sense of authority or autonomy I once had has crumbled. My days, and, it feels, my destiny, are dictated by this orange despot with his persistent, piercing mew. The only choice left to me, endure or comply. There is no respite. I have no mouth, and yet I must meow. Is this what people mean when they joke about cats owning us? It doesn't feel funny anymore. It feels horrifyingly, deeply, unmistakably true. I used to think Indy was the demanding tyrant, her requests sharp and calculated. Now, I wonder, was I, unbeknownst to myself, merely being passed from one master to another, a crown for the next feline king? Is this orange monster my Joffrey? Sometimes, as I teeter on the verge of madness, I joke to my wife, "Listen, I'm not fully fluent, but I think he's saying he's tired of it here, and wants us to drop him at a shelter where he'll be treated to finer luxuries." Or, I think he just said it's time he struck out on his own, got a job, found his own apartment. Maybe it's time to help him gain independence. Or, perhaps with a twinkle of mischief, Pico tells me lake swimming could be his new hobby. My wife finds these less and less funny as time goes on, especially since I repeat them, perhaps a little too often. She warns me, only half joking, of dire consequences if she catches me entertaining such treacherous thoughts. Do I think such things? Only constantly. I assure you, all of this is in jest. I may sometimes question my own sanity, but I promise you, I am not a monster. I could never harm this cat, or any other creature for that matter. There's something about cats that melts me. I am gentle with them, and I truly love them more than most people. Even this one. Even this absurd feline who seems determined to test the very limits of my patience and affection. Believe me, I love him. I do. I swear. Yet I am left utterly baffled. Yes, annoyed sometimes, but mostly just completely mystified by his behavior. Why does he cling to this bizarre little ritual with such fervor? Is it just play for him? Or is there some elaborate humiliation ritual underway, one I have yet to fully unravel? I'll never quite know. When I try to ignore his calls and return to my work, he simply waits a few minutes, then cries for me once more. And when I inevitably give in and return, I find that he stood up again, expectant as ever. So clearly, being knocked over must be part of the game. But why? Why is he so particular in this strange conduct? What on earth does any of this mean? What is this ritual between us? I think I have resigned myself to my fate. I will be his personal elevator, carry out his belly rubs with utmost dedication, and find my emotional sustenance buried somewhere in his enjoyment of my attention. Every time he clasps my arm or paws at my shirt, my heart turns to putty. And oh, when he starts making those slow, deliberate air biscuits, why do they look so absurdly delicious? Why are they so slow, so mesmerizing? So perfect? Update 2. Things have taken a turn I didn't see coming, and honestly, I'm not sure whether to laugh or start planning my escape route. So remember how I mentioned Pico's relentless meowing and his obsession with belly rubs? Well, it turns out that was just the warm-up act. Last week, my wife started working late shifts at the hospital. She's a nurse, and they're perpetually short-staffed. This means I'm alone with His Orange Majesty for 12-hour stretches, 3 nights a week. The first night alone, I thought I'd finally get some peace. Maybe without my wife around, Pico would retreat to his old hiding spots and leave me be. Wrong. So spectacularly wrong. Instead, he turned into some sort of feline shadow. The moment my wife's car pulled out of the driveway, he materialized beside my desk chair like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. But here's the weird part, he wasn't meowing. At all. He just stared. For 20 minutes straight. Those big amber eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made me genuinely uncomfortable. Then he did something I've never seen him do before. He walked over to where Gemma's old bed used to be, we'd moved it months ago, and sat down in that exact spot. He looked at me, looked at the empty space, then back at me. It was like he was saying, "See? I remember her too." I nearly lost it. I actually talked to him, really talked, not our usual sarcastic back and forth. "Yeah, buddy, I miss her too. And I swear on everything holy," he blinked slowly at me. Once. Then got up and walked away. But that's not even the strangest part. The strangest part is what happened 3 nights later. I was working late, probably around 11 p.m., when I heard my wife's key in the door. Except, it wasn't her. It was her sister, Emma, who has a spare key and apparently decided to stop by unannounced after a night out. She was slightly drunk and claimed she just wanted to check on us since my wife was working nights. Now, Emma and I have always had this tension. Nothing inappropriate, just that awkward dynamic where your spouse's sibling clearly thinks you're not good enough for their family member. She's made little comments over the years, about my job, my cooking, how I let the cats walk all over me. Classic passive-aggressive stuff. But Pico, this is where it gets bizarre, Pico went absolutely nuclear on her. The cat who's terrified of his own shadow, who hides when the doorbell rings, marched straight up to Emma and started yowling like she was an intruder. Not meowing. Yowling. Deep, guttural sounds I didn't even know he could make. Emma tried to pet him, and he actually hissed. Pico has never hissed at anyone in his life. Then he did something that made my blood run cold. He positioned himself directly between Emma and me, first standing on end, looking like a tiny orange gargoyle. "What's wrong with your cat?" Emma asked, backing toward the door. I honestly have no idea. She left pretty quickly after that, muttering something about weird vibes in our house. But here's the thing, the moment her car disappeared down the street, Pico transformed back into his usual clingy self. Jumped right up onto my lap, started purring, began kneading my shirt like nothing had happened. I've been thinking about this nonstop. How did he know something was off about Emma's visit? My wife doesn't even know her sister stopped by. Emma made me promise not to mention it because she didn't want to worry her during a busy shift. But somehow, this anxious, emotionally fragile cat turned into a guard dog the moment he sensed. What exactly? And there's more. Yesterday, while my wife was at work again, Pico led me upstairs to the guest bedroom, something he's never done. He jumped onto the bed and started pawing at the pillows, meowing in that urgent way he does when he wants something specific. I followed his lead and found Emma's earring wedged between the mattress and headboard, an earring that definitely wasn't there when my wife changed the sheets last weekend. My stomach dropped. Emma had been here before. While my wife was working. And somehow, this cat, this supposedly oblivious, anxious mess of a cat, had been keeping track. I don't know what to think anymore. Is Emma having some kind of crisis and using our house as a hideout? Is this more innocent than it seems? Or am I reading too much into a drunk woman making poor decisions about where to crash for a few hours? What I do know is that Pico has appointed himself as my personal investigator, and frankly, he's better at it than I am. Every time my wife texts that she's working late, he stations himself by the front window, ears perked, like he's on surveillance duty. The belly rubs continue, of course. If anything, they've intensified. It's like he's saying, I've got your back, so you better keep rubbing mine, and honestly? I'm starting to think this orange weirdo might be the smartest one in the house. I haven't told my wife about any of this yet. How do you even start the conversation? Honey, I think your sister has been sneaking into our house, and our cat is the only reason I found out? But I'm watching now. We're both watching. And something tells me this story is far from over. Update 3. I need to start this by saying I was wrong about everything. So completely, devastatingly wrong that I'm still processing what actually happened. And Pico, this ridiculous orange cat who I thought was just grieving and clingy, might have saved my marriage. Last Tuesday night, my wife was supposed to work another late shift. Same routine, kiss goodbye at 6 p.m., me settling in for another evening of Pico's surveillance theater. Except around 8:30, I get a text from my wife, they sent me home early, slow night. Be there in 20 minutes, love you. Pico was already at his post by the front window when I got the message. I told him, good news, buddy. Mom's coming home early. He looked at me, then back at the window, ears still perked like he was expecting someone else entirely. 10 minutes later, headlights swept across our driveway. Pico's tail puffed up like a bottle brush. But it wasn't my wife's Honda. It was Emma's silver Subaru. My blood went cold. She was coming again, but this time my wife would be home in 10 minutes. I watched Emma sit in her car for a moment, checking her phone, then get out with what looked like an overnight bag. That's when everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. See, I'd been so focused on Emma sneaking into our house that I missed the bigger picture. She wasn't using our place as a crash pad. She was using it as a meeting spot. The question was, meeting whom? I ducked into the kitchen and called my wife. Hey, where are you exactly? Just pulled into the hospital parking lot. Why? The hospital? I thought you said you were coming home. There was a pause. A long pause. What? No, honey, I said they called me in for an emergency shift. I'll be here until morning. But I had the text. Right there on my phone. They sent me home early, slow night. Be there in 20 minutes, can you send me a screenshot of that text? My wife asked, her voice getting smaller. I did. Another pause. I never sent that. Pico chose that exact moment to start his warning yowls, not at Emma, but toward our sliding glass door that leads to the backyard. Someone else was coming. I peeked through the blinds and saw a figure walking around from the side yard. Male, tall, wearing a dark jacket. In the moonlight, I could just make out his face as he approached the door. It was Dr. Marcus Webb. My wife's attending physician, the guy she's mentioned countless times over the past year, how brilliant he is, how he's been such a mentor during her transition to the ICU, how he really gets her professional goals. Emma opened our front door with her key. Dr. Webb slipped in through the back. They thought the house was empty. They thought my wife was safely at work for the next 12 hours. Someone had spoofed her number to send me that fake text, probably to make sure I'd be out of the house when she came home early. I crept upstairs with Pico following silently. Apparently he saves his vocal performances for when he actually wants to alert me to danger. From the top of the stairs, I could hear them talking in hushed voices. Are you sure he won't come back? That was Dr. Webb. He never leaves when she's working nights. Plus, I sent the text from her phone earlier, he thinks she's coming home, so he'll probably go pick up dinner or something. Emma's voice. I still don't like using their house for this. It's perfect. She'll never suspect, and if anyone asks, I was just checking on them while she was at work. Besides, after tonight, it won't matter anymore. My hands were shaking as I tried to process what I was hearing. Emma was facilitating an affair between my wife and her colleague. But that last comment, after tonight, it won't matter anymore, that sounded like something was about to come to a head. I needed proof. I needed to call my wife. But first, I had to get them out of my house. Pico, bless his manipulative orange heart, seemed to understand the assignment. He walked to the top of the stairs and unleashed the most blood-curdling yowl I've ever heard from him, like he was being murdered by tiny demons. Then he bolted down the stairs, claws skittering on hardwood, making as much noise as possible. What the hell was that? Dr. Webb's voice, sharp with panic. Just the cat. But he shouldn't be here if we need to leave. Now, I heard rapid footsteps, the back door sliding open, then Emma's voice, shit. Marcus, go. I'll lock up and leave through the front. By the time I made it back to the window, Dr. Webb was jogging across our backyard toward the street behind our house. Emma's car was already backing out of the driveway. Pico trotted back upstairs and jumped onto my lap, purring like he'd just won the lottery. I called my wife immediately. Honey, this is going to sound insane, but I need to ask you something and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. What's wrong? Are you having an affair with Dr. Webb? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. How did you? Who told you that? My heart shattered and reformed in the span of those 7 words. She didn't deny it. She didn't sound surprised. She sounded caught. So it's true, it's complicated, and it's not what you think, and I was going to tell you, when? After you and Emma used our house as your secret meeting spot? Another silence. Then, Emma's involved? Turns out, my wife had no idea her sister was facilitating anything. Dr. Webb had convinced Emma to help by telling her that he and my wife were planning a surprise for me, something about a promotion opportunity at his private practice. Emma, who's always been gullible and desperate to prove she cares about family, fell for it completely. The affair had been going on for 3 months. The fake text was Dr. Webb's idea. He'd cloned my wife's number using some app, planning to create a window where they could meet at our house while she was safely at work. It was supposed to be their first time together outside the hospital. But my wife never showed up. Because she was actually at work. Apparently, Webb had lied to both my wife and Emma about the timing, told each of them something different. My wife thought they were meeting Thursday night. Emma thought they were meeting Tuesday. Dr. Webb was planning to show up Tuesday, have Emma let him in, then text my wife some emergency about needing to talk immediately. The whole thing was a setup to manipulate my wife into a compromising situation at our house, with Emma as an unwitting accomplice. When I explained what I'd witnessed, my wife broke down completely. She'd been having an emotional affair, late-night conversations, shared lunches, professional boundaries that had blurred into something else. But she'd never crossed the physical line, and she'd been planning to end it. Dr. Webb pushing for this house meeting was apparently his ultimatum: either they took things to the next level, or he'd make her professional life difficult. We talked until 4 a.m. It was the most honest conversation we've had in years, and not just about the affair. About how disconnected we'd become since COVID, how her new job stress was affecting everything, how we'd both been going through the motions of our marriage without really seeing each other anymore. Emma showed up the next morning, mortified and sobbing. She'd gotten a furious call from Dr. Webb when he realized the whole plan had fallen apart, and he told her exactly what he'd really been planning. She'd thought she was helping plan a surprise party. As for Dr. Webb, my wife reported him to the hospital administration. Turns out, this wasn't his first time pursuing inappropriate relationships with younger colleagues. He's been suspended pending investigation. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night: if my wife had actually been working that shift as scheduled, if Dr. Webb's plan had gone as intended, would she have gone through with it? She says no, that she would have left immediately. I want to believe her. Some days I do. We're in couples therapy now. It's hard work, but we're both committed to figuring this out. The therapist says that sometimes affairs are symptoms of deeper issues rather than causes, and that emotional affairs often happen when people feel invisible in their own relationships. And Pico? He's back to his normal routine of demanding belly rubs and following me around like a furry alarm system. Except now, when my wife and I are having difficult conversations about rebuilding trust, he positions himself exactly between us and purrs loud enough to drown out the tension. It's like he's conducting some kind of healing meditation. My wife keeps saying he saved our marriage. Maybe he did. Or maybe he just saved us from a much worse discovery down the road. Either way, I owe him a lifetime supply of belly rubs. Even if he never stops meowing for them. The weird thing is, I think I understand him now. All that demanding, clingy behavior, maybe it wasn't manipulation. Maybe it was just love, expressed in the only way he knew how. And maybe, just maybe, he could sense that our little family was fracturing before any of us humans figured it out. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for every single annoying meow. Update 4. I thought therapy was helping. I really did. For about 6 weeks, my wife and I were making progress, or at least, I thought we were. She seemed genuinely remorseful, we were communicating better, and even Pico had settled into a less frantic routine. He still demanded his belly rubs, but there was something calmer about him, like he could sense the household tension easing. Then last Thursday happened. My wife had just finished a particularly brutal shift, a double that turned into 16 hours because of a multi-car accident. She came home exhausted, barely spoke, and went straight to bed around 7 a.m. I took the day off to let her sleep and was working quietly in my office when Pico started acting strange again. Not his usual attention-seeking behavior. This was different. He kept walking to the front door, sitting for a few minutes, then coming back to stare at me with those unsettling amber eyes. Around noon, he started the yowling again, but it was directed at the door, not at me. I looked out the window and saw a black sedan parked across the street. Nothing unusual about that, except the same car had been there Tuesday when I got home from grocery shopping. And Monday evening when I walked Gemma's old route around the block for some air. The person inside wasn't trying to hide. Middle-aged woman, blonde hair, expensive-looking sunglasses despite the overcast day. She was just sitting there, watching our house. Pico escalated to full-blown howling. I grabbed my phone and stepped onto the front porch, pretending to check the mail. The woman immediately started her car and drove away, but not before I caught her license plate. Something about her face looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. That evening, I mentioned it to my wife over dinner. Probably just someone lost or waiting for a friend, she said, but her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Did you get a good look at her? Blonde, maybe 50s? Drove a black Toyota Camry. My wife went very still. License plate? I showed her the photo I'd taken. She stared at it for a long moment, then excused herself to the bathroom. I heard water running for 10 minutes. When she came back, her eyes were red. That's Dr. Webb's wife. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. His wife? Linda Webb. I've met her at hospital functions. She knows about us. Apparently, when the hospital suspended Drive, Webb pending investigation, he went home and confessed everything to his wife. Not just about my wife, but about what my wife later learned was a pattern going back years. 3 other nurses, 2 residents, even a pharmaceutical rep. Linda Webb had been living with a serial cheater, and my wife was just his latest target. But here's where it gets worse. Linda Webb didn't just want to destroy her husband's career. She wanted to destroy everyone he'd been involved with. She'd already gotten one of the other nurses fired by sending compromising emails to the wrong people. She was working her way down the list. She's been watching our house, my wife whispered. Taking photos, probably documenting my schedule. She's going to try to destroy my career next. I felt sick. What kind of photos? I don't know. But if she has evidence of. If she makes it look like I was the instigator, or if she twists things. My wife could lose her nursing license, 20 years of her career, gone. We'd worked so hard to rebuild trust between us, but now this specter from her mistake was threatening to unravel everything we'd accomplished and more. That night, I barely slept. Every car that drove by made me tense. Pico, sensing my anxiety, abandoned his usual sleeping spot on the bed and instead stationed himself by the bedroom window, occasionally making small chirping sounds at shadows. Around 3 a.m., he started growling, not meowing or yowling, growling, low and continuous like a tiny orange engine of fury. I crept to the window and saw a figure in our backyard, right by the sliding glass door where Dr. Webb had entered weeks ago. It was Linda Webb. She was holding something up to the glass, a camera or a phone, and the flash kept going off into our dark house. I woke my wife immediately. She called 911 while I grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs. By the time I reached the sliding door, Linda was gone, but she'd left something behind, printed photos scattered on our patio table. They were surveillance shots of our house. Of me leaving for work. Of my wife coming home. Of Emma's visits, including dates and timestamps from before I'd even known Emma was sneaking over. This woman had been watching us for weeks, long before her husband confessed, but the most chilling photo was one taken through our kitchen window, my wife and me having breakfast last Sunday, with a red circle drawn around my wife's face and homewrecker written in block letters across the bottom. The police arrived within minutes. Apparently Linda Webb had been reported in 2 other neighborhoods for similar behavior. They found her parked 3 blocks away, car full of telephoto lenses, printed photos of various hospital staff members, and what the officer described as extensive documentation of people's daily routines. She's been charged with stalking and harassment. Restraining order granted. But the damage feels done. My wife is terrified that the photos will surface anyway, that somehow Linda will find a way to ruin her career even from behind legal barriers. And me? I keep thinking about how Pico knew. From the very first night Linda Webb parked outside our house, he was alerting me. When Emma was sneaking in, when Drive, Webb was planning his manipulation, when Linda was taking surveillance photos, this anxious, supposedly oblivious cat was the only one actually paying attention to what was happening around us. Yesterday, my wife found me in the office giving Pico his afternoon belly rub session. She sat on the bed and watched us for a few minutes. "You know what's funny?" she said. "Before all this started, I used to be jealous of how much attention you gave the cats. I thought you loved them more than me, and now? Now I think maybe they love you more than I deserve." Pico chose that moment to grab my arm with both paws and start making those slow, deliberate air biscuits against my shirt. His purr filled the silence between us. We're still in therapy. We're still rebuilding. But I think we might actually make it through this, and I have the strangest feeling that a 17-pound orange cat had more to do with saving our marriage than either of us will ever fully understand. Although I have to say, he's gotten even more demanding since becoming our household security system. Yesterday he meowed at me for 20 straight minutes because I had the audacity to use the bathroom without first informing him of my whereabouts. Some things never change.